Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Toby and Brian here. You guys are the co-founders of Ordinals Bot. It's a really interesting tool you guys have built that's helping do inscriptions on the blockchain, and really on Bitcoin. And I think it's a tool that's helped a lot of people do really large inscriptions that may not have been possible without it. And you've amassed hundreds of thousands of users now that really have been able to get a lot of value from this and help people just utilize Bitcoin in ways that maybe they wouldn't have been able to do before. So I'm excited to have you guys here and to get into your story.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Great. So early on, where did you guys, how did you guys first meet, and how did you guys realize, when did you get to the point, like, hey, we're going to build something together?
Yeah, it's a long story actually, because I met Toby around about 4 years ago actually. So 3 or 4 years ago, I launched an NFT collection on Ethereum in June 2021 called Satoshables. So it was a Satoshi based NFT collection, and yeah, launched it at the right time. Everything was minted out. It went really well, and then I had a community. And Toby actually minted a whole bunch of them and started advising me on the project, and then that's was how we met. And then over time, we just kept working on different projects together. And then last year, we launched Ordinals Bot, and it was a really successful launch, like product market fit from day one, and great user base. And I'm like, okay, this is an actual business. And then that's where I kind of said to Toby, hey, let's do it together, jump on and as co-founder. And then, a year and a half later, it's been amazing growth, and went strength to strength.
That's awesome. So how did the idea for Ordinals Bot happen? I know inscriptions on Bitcoin is pretty recent, but how did this specific idea occur?
Yeah, I mean, out of necessity, basically. I'm a front end designer myself, but I've always been in tune with like Bitcoin and digital assets, and I'm a big fan of the NFT space and collectible space. So when I heard about ordinals, basically, and the fact that you can inscribe these things on Bitcoin, and basically they were Bitcoin NFTs or collectibles, I'm like, this is really cool. How do I do it? So I went down the Ordinals rabbit hole very early on. This was like end of 2022, basically. Followed Casey Rodimer, who's the creator of Ordinals, followed his YouTube videos, and he has great information, but it's quite a technical hurdle to get to actually inscribe this stuff. As a front-end developer, you have to have Bitcoin knowledge, you have to run your own Bitcoin node, you have to run the Ordinals protocol. So for me, it was a little bit too difficult, and I reached out to a friend who I worked with in the past as well. He was already building essentially the back end of Ordinals Bot, and I said, this is amazing. So over the weekend, I put a front end on it, and we launched the thing. And essentially what we ended up with was a website where people can just like drag and drop files, and then literally just we'll inscribe it for them. So made it really easy for people to inscribe, basically, including people like myself. And like I said, once that kind of went out into the ecosystem, it was the first of its kind, that kind of service. It really just caught fire, essentially. And there was a really amazing mint going on at the time. The Bitcoin punks were minting at the time, and everyone who was minting that collection was essentially just like doing OTC trades in Discord, saying, pay me $1,000 and trust me, bro, I'll inscribe this thing for you. And now we come along with a service where they can do it themselves, essentially. So it really caught fire. And that was the beginning of it. And since then, we've been growing with the space and continuing that mantra of just automating and making it easy for people to basically interact and to put these amazing things on Bitcoin.
So Toby, how do you guys complement each other's skill set?
Yeah, I think we have a very I think we've been very lucky with like the core founding team, because we all have very different skills, right? So I'm more like experienced on like the finance side. So essentially, I'm head of strategy, run like the investor relations for the business, have played quite a big role in business development and the marketing. And Brian obviously is like, I guess, the product visionary, right, of the business. Like he's him and Zach did amazing work, because Zach's a really strong back-end developer, Bitcoin native developer, and then Brian's a really good front-end product guy. And basically they pulled together in a weekend a product that was just got instant traction, instant product market fit. That was really exciting for me, because I've been an entrepreneur for 12 years and raised quite a bit of capital for different projects, but I've never had a business that literally within 3 days was profitable, right? Like that's kind of the dream. And we we pretty much went on a fundraising trail from like in a week old business, and like because I've been in like the VC and startup tech space for like 10, 12 years, like the intros that I could make for the business were insane. And this was like literally, it's the best business I've ever been involved in just in terms of traction, the product working. And so we started like as a week old startup with a really strong business team and a really strong tech team, which is like pretty rare, I'd say.
How did you convince some of these investors to want to buy into something that's really new and there's not much of a precedent for it?
Yeah, it was actually really hard. So it was incredibly frustrating for us. We went on like a several month long roadshow, and we're just like what we had basically. There was a lot of skepticism, right? Like I can remember like we went on like probably about 60 VC calls in the space of a couple of months, right? Like it was insane. And there was all this kind of, they'd be tossing back and forth oh, isn't this just a flash in the pan? A Bitcoiner is really going to want to do like DeFi stuff. We don't believe you. And they're going, but your numbers are really good, so there must be something here. And then we'd be like talking back and forth. And then it just got to a breakthrough. I think we just, you know how you meet a lot of people, and we just got really good at pitching people. So like some really early believers, we had some good advisors as well, and just went on a long road show. And it's definitely, I think Brian, you'd say we'd learned a lot on the way, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was a brand new industry. Like, ordinals are fundamentally different from any other NFT, right? When you look at Ethereum and Solana, they're essentially the same thing, right? Obviously, Solana is a fork of Ethereum, and it is literally the same smart contract language and everything. On Bitcoin, there's no smart contracts, so it's pretty much a new industry, and we essentially made the first ever inscription service as well. So we had to explain to people what that means, right? what this tool actually does. So we're up against it from that point of view. We're up against it from the fact that it's on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, fans are very like adamant of like not changing anything. So we had to also explain that kind of stuff, but like Toby said, the numbers and the excitement just spoke for itself, and we had a couple of VC calls where it was kind of a little bit of a no, and then they would come back to us because as the ordinals space grew, more buzz, they would get like messages saying, "Hey, have you spoke to any ordinals teams yet?" And it's like, "Oh wait, actually I did speak to a team," and then they would come back to us, and actually end up investing as well. And then just we did a pre-seed last year and a seed round this year, and we noticed a stark difference this year during the raise. It was almost easier because a year later and billions of dollars of volume later, like it's kind of got its footing in a sense. So it was less about like explaining what Ordinals was and more about what does the future hold basically, and where are we got to be positioned in the future. And we've got some great ideas for that, so.
Brian, why do you care so much about ordinals? Like, what's so special about them that has drawn you to the space?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been fascinated by digital art, and especially digital art on a blockchain. And as I say, my first experience of that was launching my NFT collection on Ethereum. But one of the things that's always kind of irked me a little bit about Ethereum and also Solana NFTs is that they point to essentially the file, right? They're not actually putting the file on chain most of the time. They point to like IPFS or in some cases directly on Amazon Web Services. But even IPFS, which is essentially like a decentralized file, they call it storage, but it's more of a file indexer, is not hosted magically somewhere in the cloud. It's people have to host that stuff as well. So unfortunately, like the kind of dirty secret of NFTs is that, in 100 years, unless someone's paying those hosting bills, that file, that your beloved NFT is gone. You're going to have just essentially a placeholder with a dead link in your wallet, And as soon as I heard about Ordinals and the fact that actually these files, images or files are like the bytes of those files are directly inscribed in the transaction on Bitcoin on chain, essentially, and they're there forever. They'll be there for as long as Bitcoin's around. That was a real kind of turning point for me. Yes, it's more difficult. Yes, it's more friction there to do this stuff. But like I think it far outweighs the benefit of actually you're doing this forever, and it'll be on chain forever. So it's kind of like inscribing or painting on the caves, like 100,000 years ago. Potentially that's what we're doing on Bitcoin right now. And I've just been a huge fan of Bitcoin. I love my NFT collection is called Satoshis because of the whole lore of Satoshi Nakamoto, and nobody knows who he or she is, and the fact that it just magically dropped at the perfect time. And yeah, Bitcoin for me is amazing. I'm a huge fan.
So, one of the interesting things about what you've built is you've kind of built like the first automated inscription platform. Like, what kind of went into actually making something like that work? Like, how did you build it?
Yeah, it was difficult because actually, the Ordinals protocol itself was not finished when we launched, so to roll it back, the reason the Ordinals protocol even exists is because Casey Rodimer, who is actually a Bitcoin dev in his own right, he's a core contributor, really, really smart guy, but he's also a creative guy. He's also an artist. He likes to make his own artwork, generative artwork and stuff. And he also looked at the NFT scene in 2021 and says, okay, I'm going to do some NFTs. Basically, like, opened the door, looked at Ethereum and went, nope, it's not for me. Like, I don't want to. It's just he got it right away. This stuff's not on chain. I'm not interested, basically. And that was a seed in his brain in 2021. And over that time, he started to basically think, can I do this on Bitcoin? Right? I love Bitcoin. Can I put my artwork on Bitcoin? There's been counterparty. There's been precedent for this happening on Bitcoin, but how would I do it, basically? And he went and essentially created this protocol that allows essentially non-fungible assets to live on Bitcoin without changing Bitcoin in any way whatsoever. So it's a really beautiful solution he came up with. But he had no traction. No one knew about it apart from him telling people about it. And then he decided just to launch it basically in January on mainnet, without any hype or anyone knowing about it, and didn't expect it to blow up the way it blew up. So what he did launch was essentially like a half-cooked product, right? There was bugs, there was like features missing and stuff. So when we launched our product 1 month later, or just about under 1 month later, on February 7th, we had to understand that this is very experimental tech, and we need to be in the journey with them. We need to grow with them. So as they update, we'll need to be on the ball to make sure we are staying up to date to offer the same updates to our users. So that was a real challenge at the beginning, to keep up with these constant updates, because he didn't owe us anything. He can update his protocol in any way he wants and as fast as he wants, and we just had to keep up with that. And luckily, a year and a half later, the Ordinals protocol itself is in a really strong position. It's almost feature ready in terms of what Casey has in mind for his vision for the whole protocol, and we've been able to keep up and offer all the different features that are in Ordinals. If you ran your own Ordinals instance, we've been able to bring it into our tool and offer it through our tool, our UI, our website, but also through our API as well. So we're an API company first. So basically, anybody can use our API and essentially build the same tool that we've got with our own API. They can tweak it. They can do like a niche version of it, or they can build marketplaces, all sorts of cool stuff. So yeah, it was a fun journey to basically, and challenging journey to grow with that, and yeah, we'll see how it goes in the future as well.
So you guys have done, you've done, I think, 80% of the largest Bitcoin ordinal files. Why do people really trust what you've built to handle that level of size?
Yeah, so I think we really did well at both having like a really strong Bitcoin tech team, and also getting an early partnership with Mara, and in terms of like, we collaborated with Mara on this Slipstream service, and they're one of the world's biggest miners. And I think they just, firstly, we kind of came to them with the idea. So like their tech team kind of went away having heard us talking about ordinals and non-standard transactions, and they kind of went away and built a service that we could use effectively. And then I think it became very clear to them that we're one of the most advanced tech teams without a doubt in like the Ordinals BRC20 space. There's like us, there's probably a handful of firms, and they just, Mara seemed to really like collaborating with us on Slipstream just because like we made it relatively easy for them. We process work orders, and so I think we just got this kind of de facto position of dealing with this large corporate in a way that isn't really set up to deal with startups, right? So it's kind of it was really cool that like they had respect for the technical credentials of our team, and then it became very, very interesting to people, and things like the Runestone airdrop, did free large files on Bitcoin. We Logos did the biggest one. French Montana, the rapper, did a large file, and we worked with just some amazing projects, putting them into like and it's now become like a really big competition, a bit like a Times Square billboard, where people are just paying more for space to be able to get the largest file because it gives you bragging rights, right? And people will still. It's kind of ironic because over time someone else will get a larger file and supersede you, but it's been a really nice process, and we're proud to be working with as a 1 year and a half old company with one of the biggest crypto companies in the space, right? So.
Yeah, you guys have done a lot in that time period.
Definitely. And from the technical side, the reason why we do need a miner in the first place, is because, Bitcoin has a block limit of 4 megabytes. There's no going over that. That's baked into the protocol. And it has a standard transaction limit of 400 kilobytes. So any file size under 400 kilobytes, you could just use OrdinalsBot.com normally, but you can upload that file and inscribe it yourself. But anything over 400 kilobytes is a so-called non-standard transaction. So you'd need a miner basically to mine that, and we're lucky enough to have that partnership with Mara to essentially offer that to our clients. And it's anything above 400 up to 4 megabytes basically we can inscribe. And like Toby said, like the Times Square billboard analogy is I think perfect. Like it's quite expensive to do it, and you get the top spot. And then everyone in the Ordinals Bitcoin ecosystem talks about it, and tweets about it. And it's like, oh, there's a new number one largest file ever inscribed. But then, 1 kilobyte or 1 byte later, and someone gets the top spot after you, so it is temporary. But it's really, it's kind of Bitcoin wizardry, like magic, like nobody's done this stuff before. And now you've got massive files on chain forever. So.
Do you think that the reason you've been able to amass like 200,000 users is because you've been like an early mover in the space, like you launched this like a month after it started? Like what would you say is the reason you've been able to attract that many people and be like the de facto platform for Ordinals?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, we were the first, but we've been growing with the needs of the space, let's say. So not obviously we've been growing with the feature set of the Ord protocol, but we've also kept a really close eye on like what are people actually inscribing. So at the beginning, it was like just pictures of your cat or your great aunt Jemima or whatever it is, right? Just like selfies and things. Just people were testing stuff. But then it very quickly morphed into people doing full collections, similar to like what you would find on Ethereum, like PFP collections and artwork. So we wanted to, keep up with the demand as well. So we were rapidly building tooling for that. And I think we were the first one also to launch our essentially inscription launchpad, which is a inscription on demand service where people can really easily just like give us a whole bunch of files they want to launch in their collection, and then we will give them a mint link. People can go to that link and start to mint these files, and then we'll inscribe them on demand and offload those costs also to the minters rather than the project. So that was huge success at the beginning as well. And then I've also just been staying on top of the more niche, patterns that we've seen. Like, for example, the one of the first ones was the SATS naming convention, which is similar to Ethereum's ENS naming convention, where you can register like your name or brand on chain. The similar thing happened on Bitcoin with the .sats naming convention. So again, we built a really smooth experience for minting those names. And yeah, there's been such protocol similar to that. And then more recently, the fungible tokens have arrived on Bitcoin as well with BRC20 and runes. So essentially the same pattern that happened on Ethereum, where you had like DeFi summer and NFT summer, and you have these cycles of retail and degens coming to the space, and with a demand. Then we're basically building tooling to like give that to the people that they want. So basically, we have the ability to launch fungible tokens with us, but also you can set up a mint page. You can do all sorts of cool stuff with that. So again, that's our mantra, is just to like keep a close eye on the space and figure out what people want and build tooling for it and make it easy for them.
So just the last question that I have, like at this point now, what do you aspire to accomplish? Like what are maybe some of the short-term and long-term goals that you have personally and then for the platform too?
Yeah, I can go first and then maybe Toby can finish us off. But I definitely want to be just on a personal note, like just keep pushing the narrative of like why this is important to put stuff on Bitcoin. I think that it's uncensorable, government resistant data storage. It's the most secure and censor resistant data storage that's ever existed, essentially. So I've been talking about this thing for a year and a half, and you can't shut me up about it. So I'm going to continue to do that on a personal level. And then from the company, I love us to continue to keep sticking to that core principle of bringing people amazing tooling and infrastructure that people can build on. Because I believe that Bitcoin, we're only scratching the surface of what's possible on Bitcoin, and the more people build and use our tools to build themselves, I think Bitcoin's got to be used in ways we couldn't imagine. It's got to power the next bull run, for example, for sure. And yeah, we're all for it. So looking forward to see where we are this time next year.
Yeah, and I feel like already we've created one of like the most exciting Bitcoin product development companies, and really it's just extending that vision, right? Like go 200,000 users to 2 million users, right? That's like where like onboard the masses to Bitcoin, right? It's still very much an early adopter industry, right? But we're working with like massive IPs like Narcos and the Elvis Presley estate and Ghostface Killer and like, so I think like already like it's sort of, Brian and I are slightly, sometimes we get off calls and we're talking with like a celebrity who we've known for like 20 years and go like, what the hell just happened, right? So it feels almost like we're fulfilling our ambitions at the moment, but I know that we can do so much more and like really just build a important tech company in the Bitcoin space.
Definitely sounds good. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. I'm excited to see how the platform will grow. I think it's been a great solution for people who want to build in this space and want to build in an easier way and in a way that's a little bit less technical on the forefront for them. And I definitely look forward to seeing your success. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers.